Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks again to the witnesses for coming today. Let me just say something for the record that wasn't covered in the last panel. The issue of undercover journalism was raised, but I just want to put this quote on the record. The indictment was alarming enough for two pro-abortion scholars at Cornell to write an opinion piece defending undercover journalism. Professors Sherry Cobb and Michael Dorff said, quote, "We are pro-choice and we support the important work of Planned Parenthood, but we find the prosecution of these citizen journalists, however self-styled, deeply disturbing. Undercover exposés play a vital role in informing the American public of important facts that would otherwise remain hidden." End quote. We're all familiar with local TV station I-teams and undercover exposés using hidden cameras, sometimes false narratives. Mike Wallace was famous. Journalists have gone undercover to expose shoddy conditions at the VA hospitals. Nick Kristof of New York Times posed as a customer to reveal the darkness of sex trafficking in Cambodia, and you could go on and on. So for the record, I'll put that. Now let me go to this question. The gentleman mentioned Harvard. I think using whether fresh fetal tissue is vital to cures is an open question. Presently, Harvard has 8,000 medical research projects underway. Only 10 use fresh fetal tissues, 10 out of 8,000. Now, some defend the practice of fetal tissue collection from aborted babies because the fetal tissue supposedly contributes to life-saving research today. First, can you tell us what deadly disease have been cured or can now be treated thanks to modern-day collection of human fetal body parts? Anyone? No. Secondly, I'm sorry?
I would like to respond because I think the case of vaccines is appropriate. The fact is that's how those vaccines were developed.
Which vaccines?
Polio and the other long list that Professor Charo gave us. And it's so easy to look in the rearview mirror at research and say, well, now that we know everything we know, it would have been so much easier to do it a different way. You didn't have to do it this way. But the fact is, as you well know, research is a slow, tough enterprise.
Yeah, reclaiming my time. The simple fact that the vaccine for polio was developed using monkey tissue, not human fetal tissue. Let me go on to my question, and it has to do with conflict of interest. Suppose a tissue procurement business makes financial contributions to an abortion clinic from which the company harvests tissue. What ethical issues exist if the clinic notifies the company in advance that the clinic has particular abortions scheduled that would be good for acquiring particular organs or tissue? Dr. Lee.
Can you help me? It was the who's making the contribution to whom again?
The procurement business
is making the contribution to the abortion clinic.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think there's a conflict of interest in that there's not the separation. I think that there's in all of these organ transplant cases, we want to have a different set of team making the decisions about how to proceed, how to treat a patient, and then a different set of team from that on talking to the family about whether to make a donation. And if it seems to me it's the same team here that's working on aborting this baby that is also trying to get the consent from the woman, which I think is questionable whether it has authority there, but getting consent for that woman to use the fetal body parts. So I think there's a conflict of interest there, yes.
Dr. Schmainda.
Yes, there's definitely a conflict of interest, and I'd like to also add, with regard to the procurement of tissue, I oversee a tissue bank for brain tumor tissue and spinal cord tumor tissue. And our procedure is such that we have to have someone constantly on call with a pager, and they have to be there in the OR, ready to go 30 minutes from tissue removal. And if you don't get that tissue within 30 minutes of removal, it's no longer useful for research, especially the more advanced research like genomics and proteomics. So it's very difficult to see how there can be a separation between the research and the requirements of the scientific community and the act of procuring that tissue.
My time's expired. Thank you.
Gentleman's time is